Mr. Beekman, would you call us to order?
Do that. Okay. You want me to take the roll call now?
No, just the announcement that this is the, what do you call it, zoning board meeting?
You're really testing me now.
Yes. As the new Irina.
It is 7 o'clock on Tuesday, July 26, 2022. This is the Asbury Park regular zoning board meeting for this evening. Mr. Chair.
Yes, this meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law, 1975. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the Coaster and Asbury Park Press by publication of the annual meeting notice and posted on the municipal bulletin board and municipal website. All notices are on file with the board's secretary. Official action may be taken on the following matters before the board. Fire exits are located on the east and west sides of council chambers as well as the back of the building. I ask everyone with a cell phone to please mute it for the duration of the meeting. And this meeting is being recorded by APTV. Mr. Beekman.
Roll call. Mr. Harris.
Here.
Ms. Potter.
Here.
Mr. Slick.
Here.
Is that right, Slick?
That is correct.
Thank you. Ms. Glassman.
Here.
Mr. Scully.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
And Chairman Avalone.
Here. All right, so we have a few housekeeping issues and a few announcements to be made. The first, the resolution that's on the agenda will not be approved tonight. We will do that at another time. The minutes of July 12th will not be approved as well. And moving on from there, I'd like to let everybody know that Bonnie Knock has resigned from the board due to her own personal reasons. And also, just to let everyone know as well, Jack Serpico has kind of moved into more of a retirement role now. He has left the door and window a little bit open to say that he may come back possibly in the fall, but he's a little over the top right now and wants to take his time. And unfortunately, he's given us his opinion that he may just not come back for quite some time. And we have an application that will not be heard tonight as well, which is Kathy Morris and I want to say Ms. Kuska, if I say that correctly. Due to a problem with the notices that they had, so they have to actually move to another night, and we'll carry them. Ms. Morris, I understand you're here.
Yes.
And Mr. Beekman has spoken to you about the problem with your notices.
Correct.
So what we're going to do is let you just re-notice those 3 problematic ones that were on the list.
Okay.
We're going to probably carry you to August 9th, but I can't be certain that you'll be heard August 9th. We may have to carry you again. But I do ask that would you waive the time constraint on the record that if we can't hear you the August 9th, that we can carry you to a later date in October.
I do. Wait.
You do waive the time constraint. All right, so that's on the record. So I'll make a motion to carry 1606 4th Avenue to August 9th, 2022.
I'll second.
Without complete notice, but with the notice of those 3 problematic ones.
So just to be clear, anyone who has already received notice properly will not get re-noticed, and there will also not be a re-notice in the newspaper. There were just 3 deficient notices that are going to be corrected for the August 9th meeting.
All right, and as I said, if we have a constraint with that particular date, we'll carry you again August 9th to October 11th.
So just so I understand,
Mhm.
be here on the 9th in the event you are...
We will notify you if there's a problem with August 9th. You don't have to come for August 9th.
Okay.
All right? We will just carry it without your presence.
We'll know in advance.
We'll know in advance.
But we may hear you on the 9th, we just don't know that yet.
Okay, so moving on to the other application, 306th Avenue.
Excuse me, one more question.
Sure,
Yes.
you can.
Sorry. Thank you. How come nobody wants to stay?
James and Kathleen Dunn. Mr. Kennedy, how are
Good
you?
evening. Very good.
So this is a deja vu for this application.
Yes. Different applicant, but here we go again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin Kennedy. I'm an attorney in Red Bank, and I'm very honored to be before you tonight on behalf of my clients, Mr. and Mrs. Dunn. And as you've indicated, we're coming before you tonight for a presentation and an application for hopeful approval to construct a single-family home on a vacant lot. The property is in the R2 zone, and I believe it was, as the chair indicated, last year that an application was submitted for this very property, different applicant, and that application was for a two-family home. That particular application was denied, and the resolution of denial was submitted as part of our application package. My client purchased the property, my client is now the owner of the property, he purchased it after that denial. And my client did some fairly extensive research on reviewing the minutes and talking to people and reviewing plans and trying to get a handle on what some of the more pronounced board concerns were with that application. He attempted to address some of those very concerns, and we'll find that out momentarily. The lot is a challenging lot. It has a non-conforming width, and it's a corner lot. But again, in terms of reducing the density of what was proposed last time, two-family, we're just proposing a single-family. We hope that we present to you tonight, and that you hope that you find it's an awesomely designed home, and it's got all the nice features. It's nice, it's aesthetically pleasing, it fits in with the character of the community, and it fits in with the character of the neighborhood, and we hope that you will find it worthy of variance approval. And Mr. Chairman, just my roadway for tonight, roadmap for tonight, I have my applicant, I have the architect, I have an engineer and a planner. I don't envision too much testimony, but we're certainly here to address any questions and comments and concerns members of you all and the public have.
The first concern, I guess, is that this particular lot is considered in a flood area.
Yes,
So I think that's our first thing to address.
and we'll have my engineer address that one, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
Okay. Great. Mr. Chairman, with your consent, I'd like to call my first witness.
Please.
Okay. James, come on up.
While he's coming up, members of the board, I did review the notice. The board does have jurisdiction to hear the matter, and I did let Mr. Kennedy know that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Beekman.
Thank you.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could state your name for the record.
James Dunn.
And if you could spell your last name, Mr. Dunn?
D-U-N-N.
Thank you.
All right, James, have a seat, and obviously we're the applicant tonight, and notwithstanding the fact that I just gave some commentary, you're the owner of the property, correct?
Correct.
And it's 306th Avenue.
Correct.
And for the record, how long have you owned the property, roughly?
January 21st, approximately, of 2022, we bought the land.
And I indicated, and it's currently vacant with no improvements, correct?
Correct.
And just to cut to the chase, I know you are aware of that first application which was denied. I know you reviewed the minutes and tried to do a lot of talking to the prior applicant and his representatives and other town representatives in terms of, so against that backdrop, can you just give the board a little bit of a background as to A, who you are,
Okay.
and B, your vision for this home, given
Sure.
the nature of the lot, and your reasons for having certain things designed the way you did, and
Sure.
how you tried, to the greatest extent possible, to address some of what we think to be the more pronounced concerns with the reasons application number 1 was denied.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. My wife and I are lifelong residents of Friel Township. We were born and raised there. We have 3 grown children. All of us went to the exact same Catholic grade school, St. Rosa Lima. All of us went to the same high school, Friel Township High School. We all thankfully went to different colleges and universities, but we were all born and raised in Friel Township, and we currently reside there. That's where our permanent residence is. We're not big vacationers. We think we live kind of at a vacation spot that everybody comes to, so we don't go away all that much. We've loved Asbury, you know, from when we were kids. This is where you went because it had the best boardwalk. If you went and you didn't have any money as a kid, you went to Manasquan. If you had money, you came to Asbury because they had rides and things you could do. So we've been looking for a long time to build a second home in Asbury Park. And when that lot came up for sale in December, I guess after that whole thing with the initial applicant, we put an offer in the very next day because back in December, it was a very hot real estate market. So we put a full price offer in, and unfortunately, the owner of the property wasn't really that willing to negotiate all that much with time or anything. He wanted a cash only, quick close, no contingencies. So I had to make a decision as to whether or not I wanted to buy a piece of property where I really couldn't do any due diligence. And, you know, I consulted with Kevin, and he said, you know, as an attorney, I probably would tell you not to buy it because you should do your due diligence, you should do a tank sweep, you should do all these things. And yet the owner of the property wanted nothing to do with it. He said, listen, that's on you, get it done. And he gave me 3 weeks to close. So the only thing I could do was go with the, I guess it's called the Oprah law or whatever. I could get open public records, and I read every single meeting that the prior applicant went through to see if I thought there was something in there that I wasn't going to be able to build a single family home there. And there were two main things that came out of what I read from the prior applicant. Is one, that most of the board members consistently asked him if he could build a single family home there instead of a two-family home. And his response was nobody in their right mind would, you know, build a single family home on an R2 zone property. Obviously his main concern was he was renting it out and wasn't going to be his residence, and he was looking for rental. And the other thing was that the design did not fit the community design standard of Asbury Park. Those are the two things that I think came out more than anything in there. So almost against my counsel's advice, I bought the property 3 weeks later, and then did my tank sweep, surveys, all that other stuff, everything I could get done, and hired Mike Savarese because he was the initial architect on the job, so I thought he would know it the best. You know, path of least resistance. Mike did a design, and the board did comment. They thought the design, while the building was beautiful and it was detailed, just didn't fit the community design standard. So I said to Mike Savarese, I said, you know, we want to move into this house. I want an age-in-place house. I want the master bedroom on the first floor because I want to age in place there. I have 3 grown children. I am an empty nester. My son lives in Belmar, and my 2 daughters live in Hoboken. But I want them to be able to come there and stay there. So I wanted 3 bedrooms for them, 1 bedroom in the master. And then hopefully one day, you know, my kids are getting a little older, and hopefully one day have grandchildren and be able to throw them up on a 3rd floor and let them be all dirty and muddy and sandy and wet up there, and have my grandchildren at this house. So, and I said to Mike, you know, it's got to fit the community design standard, and that's all we really care about. And I don't want it any higher than anybody else. I don't want it any closer to the sidewalk than anybody else. You know, there's some really nice homes in our neighborhood. There's a beautiful blue home catty corner to us, which is a really beautiful Victorian home. And, you know, we looked at that house. We looked at the house next to that. We have some kind of standard homes, you know, on 6th Avenue next to us, but nice homes, but standard. And then there's a couple homes to our right on Webb Street that have, you know, 1st floor decks and 2nd floor decks. And so I said, Mike, you know, that's basically all I want. I want to retire there. I want to age in place there. And I want it to fit the community standard, that Victorian standard. So, you know, Mike put, you know, beautiful wraparound porches together, put a tower on the corner, which he said is a staple of Victorian architecture. I didn't know that. That's Mike. I think it looks beautiful. I was very happy with his design. And so at the end of the day, you know, that you know, we're not big party people. We're not big entertainers. You know, my wife and I, early risers, we go to bed early, and we're empty nesters. So I just hope you approve the design. I can say the one thing in closing maybe is that Asbury Park has been extremely lucky with people that were born and raised in Freehold and moved to Asbury Park. And well, we're not as famous as Bruce Springsteen. We're kind of following the same path as Bruce Springsteen from 1969 now to 2022. Bruce went to that same grade school that we all went to. So we hope to keep that streak going for Asbury Park and be good neighbors when we eventually move in there.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any further questions for the witness at this time unless the board or the public do.
I have no questions for Mr. Dunn. Does anybody on the board have any questions for Mr. Dunn? Board professionals?
No questions.
I'll have to ask the public.
Oh, okay.
So if anyone in the public has any questions for Mr. Dunn, please go to the mic, state your name and address, and based on his testimony, you're allowed to ask him questions regarding his testimony only.
Yes, my name is Jean M. Beauville. I'm the owner of 302 6th Avenue, next to him. I don't know how you want to build a little piece of property like that. No parking. I have half of his property. He moving fence to my
Do you have a
property.
question for Mr. Dunn?
Ah, okay, Mr. who? What's his name?
Mr. Dunn.
Mr. Danny, my name is Jean Beauville. I don't know if you meet me over there. And I'm the landlord of 302 6th Avenue. I know. Since you bought your piece of property over there, you become embarrassing for everybody in this neighborhood. Call police, harass black people, harass my son, make sure...
Wait.
Do you have
This has nothing to do with his testimony. Do you have a question based on what Mr.
Why do you
Dunn?
want to build a little house over there? On a little piece of property?
He already explained why, but
Why?
Why do I want to build a house there?
Yeah.
Because I want to move to Asbury Park. I want an age-in-place home. I want to retire there.
Did you know how many people bought this place before you? They can build a house over there. Did you know that?
I only know of one. I only know of the gentleman that I bought the property from, Peter Siegel's the only one that I know that tried to build a property.
How you going to build a house on this little piece of property over there?
I had a really good team of people here that I hope can get that accomplished for me.
I don't know.
We haven't even seen the plan yet, so
Do you-
can we at least see what he's proposing?
Do you know I have a part?
okay. So is this part of his testimony? You can only.
Yes. Do you know I have a part in your property? In your property? I have a part for my house on your property?
He did not testify to that.
I'm not sure. I
You don't know that?
understand the question
No.
Okay, continue after that. I talk.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else in the public who would like to ask Mr. Dunn questions? Please ask questions relating to his testimony only. Please go to the mic, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Gloria Ferretti, 305 6th Avenue. I'm right across the street. I have a question regarding some information that's on the website.
No, that's not part of his testimony.
It's part of the documents?
It may be part of the documents, but you can only ask questions right now regarding his testimony, whatever he said just now.
There'll
Can
be
I ask
time
about-
later to ask other questions, but
Oh.
right now, it's just about the testimony that he provided, opening up.
It has nothing to do with building height? or-
Not
No,
yet.
not
Not
yet,
yet.
not yet. We'll get to all that. We'll get to that. Anybody else in the public who have any questions for Mr. Dunn's current testimony? All right. Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call Mike Savarese, our architect.
Please. Welcome back, Mr. Savarese.
Mr. Savarese,
No.
you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I did.
And if you could state your name for the record and spell your last name as well,
Michael
please.
Savarese, Savarese.
Thank you.
And just a quick synopsis of your credentials, Mr. Savarese, as we've heard them several times before.
I own an office, 15-man office in Little Silver, New Jersey, 34 Sycamore Avenue. I've been practicing architecture since 1989.
Is your license still in good order?
Yes, it is. I'm licensed in New York, in Florida, Pennsylvania, in Delaware.
Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully request that the board recognize him, continue to recognize him as a qualified expert.
Perfectly fine. Thank you, Mr. Savarese.
All right, Mr. Savarese, and just for the record, why don't you, let's talk about the application and proposal, and maybe we can better angle that for the board members and members of the public. But first up,
I don't know if they have these on.
sure, now, are these, is this something new, or is this what was previously submitted?
I'm not sure if that was submitted or not. But that's-
Okay, well then, why don't we mark this in, and do you have, are these all the same thing?
Is this currently part of the packet, Mr. Kennedy, or no?
He doesn't think it is, so it's photographs, can I mark it into the record?
Please. I don't, we have a secretary at this point, so.
So that's fine, we're gonna call that A1. And if you can just describe it so that we can identify it.
It's the two aerial photos of the site from two different ones.
Yeah, I think it's in our package.
I think they're not. I
Is it, Donna? Yeah.
think the rendering was out too, but I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's fine.
These are all the same, correct?
Yes.
Do we have any electronic support, Mr. Chevery? So,
We gave everything in PDF.
no, I mean to put up on the view screens.
Normally she puts it up with,
Oh.
you give it to her. But she has it electronic.
I'm assuming no.
Oh, I guess we don't have a way to connect
Oh,
to the TVs.
We don't have the equipment.
we don't.
She used to do it over here, though.
Yeah, but it's her laptop.
Oh,
upstairs.
okay.
She has a cord and everything, I think she usually brings.
Okay, I guess we're gonna have to not utilize the videos this time.
We'll figure something out. Because, yeah, it's frustrating. Last night was really hard.
And Mike, just for the, is this another document you're looking to?
That, I think they have it in packet.
All right, this-
They had a copy.
Okay, so that's been submitted to the package already. And this board that you're pointing to now, is this what we just gave us?
Yes, it is.
Okay. You wanna mark that or no?
Same.
If it's part of the packet already, I don't think we need to mark it.
Okay, I'm fine with that. So, Mike, if you could just go and tell the board, I mean, instead of me leading with questions, we wanna talk about, if you could describe the appearance and the building orientation and the floor plans, and obviously there's a question about flood zone and things like that.
So, I think everyone has was familiar with the site. It's on 6th Avenue West, 6th Avenue. It's a lot that's 7,000 square feet. The southwest corner of Webb. There's another shot from across 6th Avenue showing a lot, the street moving to the south. This is a copy of the rendering of what Mrs. Dunn is hoping to build. This is a modern interpretation of a Victorian building, which is prevalent to what your master plan wants. Per your review letter, I think everybody that reviewed the project said we're doing the right fenestration, we're doing the roof, we're doing setback, we're doing decks, and turrets, hip roofs, single style building, so it's conforming to what I believe is the intent of the master plan.
And Mike, it's a conforming lot area, but it's non-conforming in terms of lot width,
Yes,
correct?
correct. So, this lot width is,
Well, I'm sorry, we can get to that later, I don't want to interfere with your.
so
Kevin,
basically.
if I could just interrupt you for 1 minute, Mr. Severs. Let's mark that because I don't, it's, the two pictures on the left look like they're part of the packet. The one we just marked A1, but the two pictures on the right do not look like they're part of what we have here. So, let's just mark that whole thing A1, and that's the photos.
Oh, mark it as A1?
This is already in.
Okay. I've marked it A1 with today's date. So Mike, thanks.
So if I remember from the last time, Mr. Severies, we had to have an elevation of 11 feet. Do you have the elevation of 11 feet again?
Yes, 11.4. I reviewed yesterday with the planner the fact that there is no issue with elevation of floodplain. We are at 11.4 and the height is correct as shown in the drawings. We do not meet the definition of a half story because we looked at half story as uniform building code, which is any 50% of the floor below. Your zoning ordinance within the exterior wall cannot be bigger than 3 feet. So we don't meet that. And one of the reasons we don't meet that is why we're here, is because this is a narrow lot.
Right.
You can't start at 3 feet, because the building's only 21 feet wide. So if you start at 3 feet, there's no space left over to have a half story. And if you look on 6th Avenue, these buildings have more than 50% on the 3rd floor, but since they're much wider, they can start at 3 feet or 0 feet, and still have 12, 15 feet of high space on the 3rd floor. So that's one of the reasons why we have to start at 7'8", I believe, at the exterior wall.
Could I just, Jason, can you, let's swear you in for a second?
I'll swear both Jason, Donnie, and Jason, Donnie, you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your position.
Jason Fitcher, Board Engineer.
Donna Miller, Board Planner.
Thank you, Mr. Fitcher. Last time, if I recall, the floodplain of this particular property was not completely identified yet. It was sort of in the future was being.
You're jumping up and down. Go ahead. You're passionate about it.
Leading the witness.
Sustained.
So the property is located in a flood zone per the preliminary flood insurance rate maps. And that is the one that governs right now, right? Because we still haven't.
The higher of the two.
Yeah, and they haven't, we still don't have final maps.
Correct.
It's crazy.
So, and that was like a year ago that we were talking about this, and it still hasn't been.
So, so the elevation that, the building needs to be at has to be above the base flood elevation, which is 10. They've designed it to be 11 feet 4 inches, which is great. The question I had in my report basically centered around the grading plan says we're not going to bring any fill in, we're not going to change any of the existing grading. And Mr. Savaris's building is, first floor of his building is at 11.3, so, how are we getting there? Is it gonna be a foundation wall? Is it
Right.
gonna be a crawl space? What is it gonna be? So, the conversation I had with Mr. Savaris yesterday was, yeah, it's basically gonna be a foundation wall. They will probably have to use a flood vent for the difference. I don't think they're gonna have a problem changing the height in order to accommodate that, but it's still sort of an open question once they do, once they design it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to be limited. I get the impression they're going just to agree to keep it under the 30 feet. They'll just, whether they have to compress one thing or another thing to stay, because we're talking inches.
Right, I know, I remember.
This is going to be a slab, I'm assuming?
Slab.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough room for a crawl.
No, the crawlers have to go up, and
Yeah.
we don't put variance, we don't want
Yeah.
variance.
So slab, so you probably won't even have flood vents.
No, yeah, we're not
But,
gonna
yeah, so I don't know.
put- So it's gonna be fine.
Yep. And that's
You know,
fine.
concrete wall, but I have cul-de-sac on the wall, and go from there.
And
Okay.
Mike, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just for the record, what will the height, it'll be a complying height, correct?
The flying height, as per your coordinates, will be 29 tenths to the mean of the gabled hip roof.
And if the application is approved as a condition, you would agree that we would need to comply with all prevailing FEMA and flood regulations?
Right. So,
Okay, that's cool.
So the only, part 2 of this is, that's the house.
Mm-hmm.
They have some other structures. There's a generator.
Right.
And the HVAC equipment shown on the plan. HVAC equipment has to be also elevated
Right.
above the flood elevation. The generator would have to be above.
Is this going on the roof or?
going on platforms in the rear yard.
So our conversation yesterday was, there was possibly the opportunity to put the HVAC on the roof.
We can look at putting it on our roof, we can look at.
But the generator, needs to be at ground level, so there was an opportunity to maybe turn it or change its exact location, but it's basically gonna be on a platform, they're not gonna do.
Does that have to be elevated 11 feet?
Yeah.
It does.
It's
Yeah.
11 feet is
Yeah.
only like less than 2 feet off of where it is now. So what we do, we'll probably do it at maybe 4 feet, so it just makes sense. Or it's at.
I understand.
We looked at it, but I know no one's gonna want to see it, but it's an opportunity. On the rear, if you go Mitsubishi splits, we can actually have condenses on the wall. But it's up, I'd rather not have it on the wall. You know, we put it on the wall, but it's a lattice in front of it. But I think it's better on the platform. We asked the owner if he's willing to put it on the roof. He preferred not to, because he's looking at the roof as his source of getting light, getting sun, and seeing the ocean.
And Mike, if we had it on the ground, on a platform, we could still comply with prevailing FEMA and flood regulations?
Yes.
Okay.
And so the location that's shown on the plot plan now conforms with the setbacks as well.
Right.
So, you know, we're creeping into the next, you know, problem we have, but there's the understanding and acceptance that these structures will be elevated. They're not gonna be elevated by fill, they're gonna be elevated with platforms. They'll be above the base flood elevation, and right now, they're gonna stay where they're shown on the plot plan, in conformance with the setbacks.
Yes, and we'll discuss later on, we
The
have
other
another
thing,
element.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you a quick question? So on the, I don't know which side to call it here, one of the corners of the house, the elevation 10.85 on the grading plan, and then the finished floor is at 11.33. So how do you get your separation? Are you good with separation from soil to wood, that whole?
Yeah, but we're gonna do that with how we detail the foundation. We will bring the concrete up and the joist into the concrete, so concrete wall will be 12 inches on a 4-inch shelf, or 8-inch shelf.
And then the foundation reveal where, before the siding starts will be how high-ish?
6 inches.
Okay. That was my only question. Thanks.
To briefly go through the plan, to explain what Mr. Dunn is saying, is they want to age into, if you age into this place, the place where you want to have your main floor for living and sleeping is the first floor. So we purpose it, and I thought it too, why do you go to the top, then you can see more views. But he wants to live here, he wants to go out feet first, basically. He wants to live here forever. So what we have here is.
Personally, I want an elevator in my house, but.
Agreed.
So we have the main entrance on 6. It has a nice porch, front porch, overhang, a nice dormer to accent the front door. The stairs to the west, the bathroom is to the east. The kitchen is on the front elevation, and the mechanicals and TV.
I'm sorry, Mr. Savarese, you're going to have to talk up a little bit for us.
So the kitchen's on the front elevation, and the mechanicals and the TV and the living room on the back elevation. And the back of the house is a master suite with a modest master bathroom and a walk-in closet. The second floor is the best room for the kids. Basically, it's 3 bedrooms, a laundry, and 2 beds. And the third floor is the loft space that we're trying to squeeze out by getting, what we have is less than 50% of the floor below, but we have the high 7-foot-8 walls on the exterior. That's only for half the building. And then the back half of the building is the deck for them to have.
Is this considered a full story, the 3rd floor, or is it a half story?
Well,
It's considered a full story.
By UBC, it's
Yeah.
a half story. By your ordinance, it's a full story, as explained, because the exterior wall to be a half story can be no higher than 3 feet. Our exterior wall is 7 foot.
But I believe, Donna, you've indicated in your report that pursuant to city development regulations, variance is needed for a number of stories, 3 proposed versus 2.5 allowed.
Correct.
But you're still within the 30 feet.
Within the 30 feet. So
Yeah.
understand, if we start this at 3 feet with a 21-foot wide building, we have no headroom. It's an act, it's useless. So the premium of the fact that, hey, there's a place to everybody to have their family gatherings and to be able to enjoy the views afforded to 4-foot weather, we decided this was the best.
And just for the record, what are those views afforded off of Webb?
You get to see the ocean, you get to see, you can see the sunrise, it's kind of nice. I like it. Lighting is, we're purposely using lighting that is all inward and not outward, so there's no sconces on this building, there's downlights, so not like any neighbor, or you don't want light. Mr. don't have to be a lighting distributor, so he knows the right things to do and the wrong things to do with lighting. And the elevations, I think, speak for themselves. It's a cedar shaped vinyl type building that has Camden style feel to it, if you will, a Jersey Shore feel to it, Asbury Park feel to it. I think it fits the neighborhood very well. I think the introduction of the metal rooms on the website and the entry side, a little narrow deck affords them again to be outside and take a little bit of a view. The second floor deck is only 5 feet wide, so there's no one, you barely got a chair on there, but it's a place to open the door and smell the breeze. The top deck is a good sized deck on the top of the second floor, but again, that's their entertainment space. The back of this yard is going to be used for parking vehicles, putting 2 cars off the street. There's the plan we'll talk about.
And how many curb cuts? It's just one curb cut?
One curb cut,
Yeah.
10 feet, and actually, we studied it, we only lose.
Putting it on web?
Putting it on web, we only lose in one spot. So if you look at the web, it has crossed no parking by the corner, and then 4 spots. We actually take the 4th spot. So you give up 1 and you gain 2 off the street. And we purposely do it only 10 feet long. I think that's all I have for now.
You know, Mike, if I could just, in conclusion, I know that Jim here spoke a lot about the need, and you spoke, but if you just have a little bit more comments on why you think that this proposal is in keeping with the community design and the community standards, because this was such a big concern of the applicant.
One, this is clearly a 2.5, 3-story building. Our height is actually as equal or lower than the adjacent buildings. The 2 older, what we call full Victorian type buildings, do have higher 3rd floors and they're higher up out of the ground. So, but bulk-wise, I think we're fitting with them. I think the fact that we turn the corner with the tower makes a good end cap to the street, which belongs. On a typical Victorian street, usually turn corners with either round towers or square towers or hexagonal towers. I think it's a good fit for the lot. I think we've put as much as we can put on here without being overwhelming. And I think what helps this building is the undulation of the decks and the columns and the different metals on the roof and the railings and the textures. It's not a box.
Just to interrupt you for 1 second, Mr. Severies. Donna, this is still considered part of the historic Sunset Lake District, this particular property?
I'm sorry. No,
It is not?
no.
Okay.
It's in a waterfront infill.
Waterfront infill. Okay. Please proceed, Mr. Severies.
So, I think the elements that this elevation affords is going to be very pleasing and cap to Webb and Sixth Avenue. And having, again, even though we're asking for a variance for this front porch, I think this house needs that. And if I were to take 5 feet out of the house, I don't have a house. So I think we're at a point where I think this is the most that can be done. And I think anything less than this, also because of why build a house.
How much of the property is covered with the building?
The building itself, without the decks, is the actual 30%. With it, I think it's 38 times.
It might be 42%.
42.
42%.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions for the witness at this time.
Does anybody on the board have any questions for Mr. Savarese?
Can you talk a little bit about the 2nd and 3rd floor railings and the size of them and how you came up with that design? Because that is a bit out of our standard. Is that there's I assume a parapet wall and then a smaller railing on top?
Yes, there's a roof skirt.
A roof skirt.
And there's a little bit of a head wall, about a 1 foot railing on top. And what we like about the roof skirt is we're worried about, as we're trying to get this deck in our front yard, we don't want the outside of the deck to be thrown out, because I think this gives you a better aesthetic, and also gives you you not feel like you're on top of the lot line. So it gives you a little bit of space before the rail is there. That's why we picked that. We can take the head wall possibly down a little bit with the rendering. We get to the real drawing and we make the railings themselves 18 inches. But we
The
like,
railings are now what, at 12?
they're about 12.
Okay. I was just curious, thank you.
I have a question. The PVC lattice screening, is that going to be on the website or that's going to be on the other side of the property?
They're on the back side at the corner. The screening's here.
It's just for the record, when you say here and here,
I'm sorry, it's on the west side and the south side, half of the south side of the deck. It's to go like a little more privacy and have a more aesthetic view to the west.
I have a question. About a minute ago, you said something about, well, if I take away 5 feet from the house, there's not going to be much of a house left? Is that what you said? I don't understand
That's
what that
exactly what I
means.
said. So we're looking at that, even though it's considered building coverage, it's open space, you see through it, it's air, it's got a roof, but basically it's air. This house is 21 feet wide. If I take 5 feet out of this house, I've lost room. Imagine a bedroom being 5 feet smaller. It's a kid's room. It's only 9 feet wide. So that's why I think this is a very important element for the house. And I think the detriment versus the benefit of asking for that variance, the benefit wholly outweighs it, but I'll have the time to testify.
but I would say to the board member's question, is it safe that what you were saying was you feel that if the thing was eliminated, you would compromise the overall functionality of the home?
I think if we eliminate the deck altogether, not to have that variance, the home doesn't have the undulating feeling and the motion going on to have the Victorian look that it has. The shadows and the ins and outs of what this elevation does brings the character to the building.
I think for me, I'm struggling with the second floor balcony. It just,
Meaning
For-
this one,
that one that you're pointing to now.
this,
Yeah, I feel like it just doesn't fit in with the character of the neighborhood, having that.
basically it's, you get some breezes, it's a view, it's an outdoor space for these two bedrooms.
I understand, but
I mean, that's something to consider. You know, it could just be a metal roof, but
And here.
Just for clarification, Jill, are you talking about the design of it or the actual fact that there's a
that there's one
deck?
there.
There's a deck.
Yeah,
Well, Jill, there's one right next door.
right.
I mean, these two other houses have those,
right.
you know,
Behind the house on Webb is what you're talking about.
Look at the gray house, actually.
yeah, the gray one, yeah.
If you look at the gray one, what our deck does, is by having that roof skirt in front of it, doesn't make it look like a backyard deck in the front yard. It makes it look like it's a wall. And a lot of Victorian houses, they do a lot of work on that father. Have second floor decks.
But they don't have rooftop decks, Mr. Savarese. That's an unusual aspect of this particular
Some of them
district.
do, but yes, there's less. But there's more, that's very long.
That is an unusual aspect of this particular design, but
realize what we're going for is to get additional renovations.
I understand the concept.
And is it a complete pergola system on the outdoor deck? Is that-
No, it's only on the back and the two corners. It's a screen.
What's the roof structure? It looks, in the rendering, it looks like it's a full pergola, but in the plan, it looks like it's broken up.
Basically, it's out, in the rendering here,
Yeah.
the pergola feel is, it's only over the back wall, it's not over the entire structure.
I see.
So basically, you have this. With the floor.
How big is the rooftop deck?
24 by 16. Size of a family. Small family.
Is it?
It's bigger than my family room.
I don't have a family room.
So you're talking about a third floor deck, a second floor deck, and balcony, and a porch or a wraparound. And then on the first floor, a porch and another porch on the back. So you're talking about 5 exterior places for people to sit.
Yes.
Seems
Or put flowers or put decorations.
To me, that's excess. Okay, I just asked, how many floors can you sit on at one time? Okay, I know it's like, okay, I paid for it, it's mine. But to me, that appears to me to be excess for that neighborhood. You know, especially on a limited space. You know, I think that you could use the space for something else, you know? And if you have the deck on the side, okay, I would rather see a higher railing on it.
Well, the railing is 3 feet high.
Okay.
It's what's exposed to view is only this big.
Okay, I just think that.
It's a wall with a little
A
railing
wall
on
with a
top.
little railing,
Yeah.
okay, I got you. But, 5 is a lot to me, especially on a house that small.
You know what, if we want, if we come with after the public, we'll come back to that issue and my client and the architect will.
That's fine, Mr. Kennedy.
One thing I just briefly discussed, which would maybe satisfy everybody, is we could take the balcony and just make an indent at both doors to narrow.
So more like a Juliet
Juliet balcony built in.
Something just to open up and to let some more air in.
Exactly.
That might be more,
Yeah,
I like that idea.
Because I have a, I guess this is part of a larger concern that I have. Like, everyone knew the size of this parcel. Everyone knew its position and proportion relative to the other houses immediately adjacent. And this is starting from scratch. So we're looking at a number of different variances to extend the reach of the property, of the people's sight lines onto other people's property and encroaching the neighbor's privacy. So it's through these different porches, certainly through whatever the size of the rooftop deck is, that's going to be a major area where people are. And again, it will overlook possibly 3 or 4 surrounding properties. And it concerns me that this parcel that the project is not being built within the confines of the standard space, given the problems that it presents. And I understand that the applicant wants the benefit of all of these outdoor spaces, but I don't know that that desire is outweighed by the burdens that it places on the neighborhood and the neighbors. So I don't think, to me at least, that the creation of a simple Juliet balcony solves those larger issues in my mind.
I think it can reach them out from the plan, but from an aesthetic point of view and from a size point of view, this footprint of covered interior space is only 1,150 square feet per floor. It's 2,200 square feet. 2,300 square feet total. These outdoor spaces are just what they are, outdoor spaces. They give charm and character to an otherwise flat facade. If I was to build to my limits, I could build that and just leave it at the 2,200 square feet and do everything conforming, we're gonna have a box. And I don't think Asbury Park, nor my client, wants a box. I think we want something to study, accessible pleasing to my client and the neighborhood.
But I think you understand, Mr. Severies, we have to find a happy medium,
No, yeah.
right?
I agree.
So.
But I don't know why you say that you would only have a box. Couldn't you shrink the size of some of the interior rooms, inches here and there, so that you end up in a better place? It has some of your extra elements that you want, but it doesn't encroach beyond the setbacks.
I understand where you're coming from. It's just, I think, to get to the record, I want, there aren't any spaces, that are space that are big. Master bedroom is 16 by 11. The kitchen is 16 by 8 or 7'4". The bedroom number 3, that's 10 by 13. Bedroom number 2, that's 10 by 15'8". And the bedroom number 3, that's 12 by 13. They're not really big rooms. You know, they're livable rooms by today's standard. If this lot could afford it, a typical house, that's a 4-bedroom house today, is somewhere around 3,500 square feet. We're squeezing these things into 2,300 square feet. I think we have an aesthetically pleasing product. But if taking this covered porch, which I think is a nice element in the house, just making no balconies, I could live with that. I kind of like the dual balcony idea. But let's see what happens with everything else we have with the application.
So we're talking 5 bedrooms total, what I'm looking at.
4 technically,
One on the first floor and 3 on the second.
and then a loft on the
Okay,
third
you got a
floor.
loft.
The loft is an entertainment space.
Wait a minute. What is this? You got 3 bathrooms. Does that say bedroom right there? It says bedroom here,
Yep.
bedroom here, bedroom here, bedroom here. I count 4. Huh?
Yeah, so had I.
Second floor,
So,
and I count 1 on the first floor.
1, 2,
It says
3.
bedroom.
This right here.
That's a
says bedroom.
bathroom.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a bathroom.
That's a bathroom.
It's a typo.
no.
It's a type.
Sorry.
That's a tight bathroom.
It should say bathroom.
It should say that, okay, so that's a bathroom. It says bedroom here. So now we're talking 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms.
4 bedrooms and 1.
Bathroom on in the loft.
4 bedrooms, correct. 4.
And 2 laundry rooms.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
Who
excess.
thought of that brilliant idea?
On a small piece of property. That, I keep using that one word, excess. You know, I mean, 2 laundry rooms, 4 bathrooms, a loft, a 3rd floor deck. I mean, I could see this on in a mansion, but I can't see it in a house that's small. You know, I mean, that's how I feel, okay? It's like, how much can we get in this space?
Right.
And I'm questioning how comfortable that space is going to be once we put all that stuff in there.
Well, it's an open, both plans will deliver open spaces to make it feel comfortable.
Yeah, but I mean, basically, we're putting on almost as much there as we had in a two-family house.
I can't say yes or no to that, just I'm following the program.
I mean, I was here for the other one, that's what I'm saying. And we're putting as much in this one-family house as we put into that two-family house. I could be wrong, okay, but that's how I feel.
And we can have some more testimony on that, and I'm sure while if we continue, our client, and we'll come back with, we'll talk.
How are you feeling at this point, Mr. Kennedy, based on the comments from the board and what's been said so far?
I'm writing everything down, soaking it in, and we're obviously going to be of great interest in the comments from the board. I'd still like to proceed tonight and still, and then maybe take a few minutes to consult with the clients. That's acceptable to the board.
I just, if you wanted to proceed and have that comment with your clients first, it might be a good idea just to get to see the temperature
Good.
of, So I can give you a recess of like 10 minutes.
That would be great.
All right.
I appreciate that.
I make a motion for a recess for 10 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Anybody against?
Mr. Beekman, will you call us back to order?
Yes, I will. Roll call, Mr. Harris.
Here.
Ms. Potter.
Oh, here, sorry. Russell interrupted me.
Mr. Slick.
Here.
Ms. Glassman.
Here.
Mr. Scully.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
And Chair Avalon.
Here. Mr. Kennedy.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate the comments and appreciate the opportunity to have a break. Not all boards do that, and it was very helpful, and I appreciate it. And in the spirit of good faith, and our architect will talk about this momentarily, but just the cheat sheet version of it is based upon some of the board comments. Like I said, we're very high on this proposal, and we're sensing a lot of positive feedback. Also sensing some comments and concerns. So what we would like to do is basically eliminate the deck on the first floor south side, which would help reduce building coverage and also going to help with parking. We'd also like to eliminate the deck on the second floor south side. And basically, we'd like to convert that second floor deck to just 2 4x5 Juliets. And the fourth element of it is we'd put some privacy plantings on that top floor just to address some of the privacy concerns. And I'll have Mr. Savarese address those in greater detail.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Please proceed, Mr. Savarese.
So now, Mike, if you can just say in architectural lingo what I just tried to say.
So what we agreed to do is which helps building coverage, helps the coverage, building coverage overage by, we get calculated by the width of the building by 5 feet. The way that it's shot, this whole section is building up, which also makes the upstairs third floor deck small at the same time. So we build it and here. And then, as per one of the recommendations, we're leaving the covered full porch on that, the aesthetic like full porch, but we'll just have balcony space we can actually step out on after 2 doors. So there's 2 4x5 balconies carved into that roof. As far as the privacy aspect of the third floor, again, our intention was lattice in the back, and on the sides, on the west side, and on the south side. And we also can see that growing ivory or some green planting on there over time. So it's going to be a nice natural wall. We won't be looking down at anybody's property. The only view we have is through that.
I think that's a concern of the board, that, it's a privacy issue, Mr. Savarese, that, the neighbors may be, people looking down on top of them and.
Visually, it can't be done. Once, I call it a wall, but I'm making a real wall, it's a wall, I think it's ugly, but if we make it a green wall, it's very pretty. When this becomes a green wall, you can't really see out of it. And it's outside also, I think that addresses everybody's concerns. It makes the building as open and aesthetically pleasing as possible.
I have a question about that upper deck. Is there when you're standing on it, is there a wall?
Yes.
How high is the wall before the lattice? 42 before the lattice kicks in?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happens is the slope, if you picture you're standing here on the deck, the slope moves down here, comes up, goes back.
Yeah.
And then there's a railing up to 42 inches. And then with the lattice, it starts from 42 and goes all the way up.
Hang on. I'm looking at the elevation drawing, and it has a note that the parapet wall is at 36 inches above the deck surface. And then there's the 8-inch railing above to get to your 42 total. So, actually 44, I guess, 8, 6, right? 14, 30. Checking with the engineer. So, close but not quite. But yeah, but there is a parapet wall. It's 36 inches with a railing on top.
Legally, we have to be 42 inches.
Right. But Mr. Scully, there is a wall, a solid wall, and then a little railing, and then the pergola screening. stuff.
And then on the south side, the green wall that you propose is gonna be the entire south side or just partial?
Half, but we could go full. The half would only afford more view down the street if you go back.
Yeah.
The neighbors don't have to play it. The house was set back. But I think that addresses a good chunk of coverage, building coverage, and addresses the need not to have 5 balconies, and only have basically rooftop and the view of the balconies.
Thank you, Mr. Savarese. Does anybody else on the board have any questions for Mr. Savarese? Mr. Beekman?
I'm not on the board, but.
No, I understand, but I was going to get to the board professionals, but you certainly fall in the category as well. So,
So just so I understand, right now the minimum rear yard setback is 20 feet proposed?
Correct.
The existing plans,
Yeah,
20 feet, right? So this will now comply in the rear yard for 25 feet?
yep.
so you're eliminating a variance.
2? Or one
Well,
and a half?
no.
1.5.
So-
1.5.
So the building coverage, the deck,
I always like eliminating variances.
so you still, explain to me what's going on the Webb Street side? You still have the porch and the ground floor?
This stays the same, we lose this coverage.
Yes. So that's only 100, it's only 105 square feet.
Yeah.
So you don't eliminate the building
No, we don't.
coverage, but you,
1.5. One of the
about a third.
Moving in the right
So-
direction.
Yeah, that's gonna reduce 105 square feet.
Yeah, but you do eliminate the rear yard setback variance.
Do you have any further questions, Mr. Beekman?
I do not, I just wanted to make sure my notes were correct.
I appreciate that.
Just one question. Do you know, where are the roof leaders expected to discharge?
down into leaders and hopefully under the parking lot.
Down where, Mr. Savarese, you say?
Down the leaders and into the parking lot that we have,
Into the parking lot.
or pavers, underneath the pavers,
Right, is that not yet designed?
not yet designed.
Got it, okay. Okay, that's all I got.
So where would the stormwater actually end up?
Not yet designed. So under the pavers.
Under the pavers.
Yeah.
You better respond for my money, the bank in Butler, but you guys got big silver problem with here. The bank over there.
Sir, you can't.
When you get a chance, you straight there, okay? Porque I'm the one that owns this,
Sir, we're in the middle of a meeting, you can't interrupt the meeting,
Okay, but
please.
you guys straight something, porque
Sir,
Cameron it's gonna
please.
cost you up.
Please.
Okay? My name Enrique Cosmo Cruz, you go anywhere, listen. You can say, give me a favor, listen. Before you get, I'm Puerto Rican, not pendejo. Go the prosecutor, put my money back, brother. Open account.
Sir,
My money?
we're in the middle of a public meeting, you cannot
No,
interrupt us.
you're not open running people in court, the judge is stealing. So if you don't leave, we'll have to call the police. Listen, sir, it don't take it like that, you respect for others.
Call the
Okay, my name Enrique Cosmo Cruz, you.
Sir.
Now back over there, you got gambling
Sir.
with the city and the venue, bro.
This is a meeting that you're
It's a
interrupting.
meeting dirty, okay, but you gotta listen.
No,
I'm not the fool. I'm the Washington. Listen, I'm Supreme Court, you're not. You better take my word.
Sir, we don't wanna have to call the police.
It's okay, but you take my word.
We're being recorded and
Okay,
we're
I'm
in
not
a
the guy,
meeting.
but you listen to me, okay? Thank you. Listen. You gambling, when you gambling, you're gonna get it. It's okay. It's okay, I'm not gonna hurt nobody for it. I told you all day. Victoria, listen, don't be a slave for it, but I'm a Spanish. Listen, I take the word. I apologize for the truth. You told it, okay? You put that money, you're gonna.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry for that interruption. Where were we?
So we eliminated the rear yard setback, we reduced the building coverage slightly.
Thank you, Donna.
And you clarified for me how the porch and the facade works on the Webb Street side. And then Jason asked about the stormwater, and so the roof leaders are gonna come down on the back of the building and then tie in and hopefully recharge underneath.
Well, he didn't say the back of the building, but he did say
Okay.
the water will end up by the
Under the
pavers.
driveway.
And actually, maybe, is there an engineer?
Yes, we do.
All right, good.
Okay,
Okay,
so we'll ask the engineer.
So as I said before, the stormwater address, we haven't addressed that at all, so, and it won't be addressed until some later point, Mr.
But
Kenny?
we will have the engineer testify
Okay.
tonight, absolutely.
Okay. Does anybody else, I'm gonna open it up to the public now for Mr. Savarese. Does anybody in the public have any questions for Mr. Savarese's testimony? Please come up to the mic, state your name and address, and ask questions relating to his testimony, please.
Hi, Pam Lamberton, Sunset Avenue. First, I'd like to say I really hope that we can come to a compromise here and get a really nice house built on that lot that's been empty for so long. But what bothers me about the proposal is the size of the lot looks like it, when you stand back and just look at it, looks like it should support a small to maybe a medium-sized house. And I feel like what you have designed, while it's really interesting, is much larger than that. You were asking originally for setback variances on all four sides and a height variance. So while Asbury Park's regulations are this size house, you're asking for this size house. Most of the houses in that area are
Ms. Lamberton, would you please ask a question?
2.5. I'm just wondering if he can reduce the size of it. And also, did you say that the...
For the record, just ask one question at a time. You can ask other questions, but just ask one at a time.
All right. Did you say the front porch is in front of the houses, the line of houses on the street? Where is the variance you're asking for in the front?
We're going into our front yard for the porch. That street, we don't have one. These houses are somewhat behind us, but if you look at 6th Street, the porches are closer to the street also. The lots are also smaller. The other thing you said, can you build a smaller house? This house is a small house. Its footprint, again, is 1,150 square feet. That's a small footprint. It's basically 2,150. The houses that are around adjacent to this building are larger. The height of the houses that are around are larger. The only reason why we have a height variance.
Keep going.
The only reason why we have a height variance is because.
And you're saying for number of stories?
For number of stories, not the height, but meeting the height. Number of stories, the definition that says the exterior wall on that 3rd story or the second half story can only be 3 feet high. In our case, our hardship is if the wall's only 3 feet high, we can't do habitable living space on that half floor. That's the variance procedure.
All right, let me just, 1 second, and clarify. So I think we've also eliminated another variance. So with the Juliet balconies, how far is it going to extend out from the, go down? Not that door, the other door. How far to the right is it gonna go? Just in line with the door? Okay, so now we're gonna eliminate the front yard setback variance.
No, but we're keeping the whole covered porch.
That is allowed to encroach into the front yard setback. Your building is at 25 feet.
Right.
So the porch is allowed to encroach. So it was the second floor part that wasn't allowed.
Okay.
So now we're not gonna have that second floor part. So his front yard setback will be conforming now.
Thank you.
I wasn't sure how far it was gonna go, so. On 6th, correct.
And it lines up with the rest of the houses
So
and porches on the road.
The 6th Avenue will be, more or less.
That's good, okay.
Where will the front door be? On 6th?
On 6th.
On 6th.
There's a front door on 6th and there's a front door on Webb,
So what's the address?
306. I mean,
The main looking front door is on 6th.
yeah.
Okay.
As you can see from here and from a nice entry.
Yeah, the Webb facade is sort of a side treatment.
This again is more to look at, address web and not have a wall.
So your next question.
The ground floor, it looks like the front door on 6th Avenue is on the ground floor. Is that, it's right at ground level?
Correct. About a foot above ground, 8 inches above ground.
And then where is how do you get to the porch?
The porch is at that level.
On ground?
Well, there's going to be probably 2 steps up from the ground to the porch and then into the house,
Okay.
just like a normal
Is this in a V flood zone or
No.
is it an A flood zone?
AE.
And we're above the required space by inches.
Okay, so that's why the 11 foot
That's
and
11 foot 4.
and they don't and it's no breakaway walls are required in that zone.
It's just a foundation.
Okay, the height again, is the turret one of the reasons it's 30 feet?
It's 30 feet to the ordinance says it's 30 feet to the mean of the gable or pitched roof. So we have 29 inches to that mean point.
Show the building elevation.
The height is
There you
not
go.
the issue. It's really the 3/3 story, which is the issue.
If you want to walk in, walk and take a look.
The height is not the issue for the ordinance. It's the fact that it's a 3rd floor.
So
Yeah, the number of feet.
from there is 29.
Yeah, it's not the tower, it's the actual part of the house. We measure to the middle part of the pitched roof.
Only half the building top. That's the old thing. It's only this half. Which, if you look on 6th, you'll notice that our building is a little bit smaller heights than this, because they're all wider.
It looks like the 2nd story and the 3rd story are the same square footage. Is that right?
No, the 1st and 2nd story are the same square footage. The 3rd story is half. The 3rd story on half is 498 square feet. And the first floor is 1,050, and the second floor is 1,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the public for Mr. Savaresi's testimony? Please come up to the mic, state your name and address for the public record.
Gloria Peretti, 305 6th Avenue.
Thank you.
There was a letter,
Okay, so this is not part of his testimony again.
but this is in reference to height.
Okay,
So it's in the documents.
okay,
This was sent to the AP Zoning Board of Adjustment from Michael Sullivan and Donna Miller.
Okay.
okay.
It says, can I just read from here? It's one sentence.
Oh, go ahead.
Since the building height is calculated based on the average ground elevation around the building, this appears to indicate that in order to achieve the needed finished floored elevation, the building may need to be increased 8 inches in height. This would exceed the maximum permitted building height.
Okay, Donna, do you want to address that?
So at the beginning of the meeting, we were talking about the flood elevation and whether he was going to use a foundation wall or a crawl space or he'd bring fill into the property. And so they said they weren't going to bring in fill, it is going to be a foundation wall. We talked about the ground elevation. That's not an issue. They clarified that through the testimony. It's not going to be 8 inches higher.
So when you say that the total building height is going to be 30 feet tall,
It's going to be 2910.
2910 to the mean of the gable roof height.
So the main part of the building, the roof, we measure between the highest point and the E, right? So you take half that distance, that's the building height. That's going to be 2910, as he's designed it, measured from the ground.
Which meets the ordinance of 30 feet.
Right.
including all the fill that needs to be brought in?
There's no fill.
There's no fill.
Right.
Is the proposed house going to be flush with the existing two little gray houses that are on Webb Street? Or is that going to extend further out? Are they gonna be flush to the porches of the two existing gray houses?
Pretty close, I can't tell you, I know that number, but it's very close. It's not gonna be sticking out the fence, it's sticking back to the fence. The part of that area that we see on the map is the right of way for the town, I can't tell you where that is.
I'll have to say this is a much better design than the previous application.
Less dense, too.
Yeah, it's just pretty. Oh, yeah, the question, so you say that the width of the house on Sixth Avenue is 21 feet. What is the length on Webb? I couldn't find it on your plans.
It's approximately 20 by 50, 21.
21 by 50? Just approximately, you don't have to be
Correct.
exact. Okay.
But it's 1,050, so approximately 20 by 50.
Okay.
Well, now it'll be 45, because we took the back deck off.
I know that the current owners are not familiar with the existing sewer issues on Sixth Avenue, but I am. I've lived there for a long time.
Okay, so that's not part of his testimony.
Okay.
So you'll have to wait for that.
That's it.
Anybody else in the public for Mr. Savarise's testimony? No? Oh, okay, please come up, state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Jean Beauville. I'm from 302 6th Avenue, Asbury. First, Mr. Architect, do you know the little piece of land is too small to hold a big house like that?
One is not a big house, and I wouldn't be up there if it was too small to hold this house.
Yeah, do you know you violate the sidewalk? There is a violation of a sidewalk privacy from 6th Avenue to
I
the,
don't understand what you're talking about.
like, you don't leave enough room from 6th Avenue to your new.
I believe you're mistaken, and the code engineer can let you know that.
Do you know the only thing you have to do a new plan because it's confused.
I beg to differ, but the plans are here for you to look at. Have you looked at the plans?
I already saw it. Yeah. I already saw it. And
Are you an architect by any chance?
I'm an engineer, I'm not an architect. Do you know where are you going to put the backyard?
In the rear yard, there'll be pavers.
Where? I don't see the
You said you'd
backyard.
be able to make a plan.
I don't see the backyard. Yo.
There's a rear area that is 25 feet from the south line. There's an area for parking or a rear area. So that's what the backyard is. And that's why they're asking for the roof recreational area, because of that additional recreational space. Just leave it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public for Mr. Savarise's testimony?
Hi, Tamara Bolville. I'm also at 302 6th Avenue. I just had a question about the parking situation.
Okay, so he hasn't had any testimony regarding the parking, really.
Okay,
But we will momentarily.
okay,
So you'll have to wait for that question, but
Of course,
we will,
okay.
we will get to it.
sounds great. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Savarese. I'm assuming there's nobody else in the public that would like to ask Mr. Savarese a question. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Savarese. Mr. Kennedy,
Sure,
back to
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call our engineer, Dave Schmidt. right, Dave, we'll get you sworn in.
Mr. Schmidt, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could state your name for the record and spell your last name, please.
My name is David J. Schmidt, S-C-H-M-I-E-T. I'm a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I graduated NJIT in 1986. I got licensed in 1996. I worked at Bank Leaf Engineering for 10 years.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. We accept your credentials.
Kevin, just for housekeeping, are there any plans or anything that have to be marked that haven't been submitted?
Well, the first, that's not an exhibit. Okay, the first thing that I put on the board is the plot and grading plan. Plot grading.
Well, are we going to introduce anything into the record that's not already been submitted?
Well, since we are, I believe we were coming back, I could show the parking.
Okay.
but-
No,
but
all right. So
I have an exhibit that
no.
we could, but we're-
Okay.
right now we have, what I put on the board is the plot and grading plan, plot grading and variance plan for block 3606 lot 5 dated March 4th, 2022, revised March 31st, 2022, as prepared by office, which we forwarded to all. So that is what we put up on the board. In the top left corner is the piece of property. We are, yeah.
Okay, go on. Yep.
They really don't have a big spiel because it's really an
Yeah, we'll just talk
architect
about
plan.
some of the engineering.
Okay. Okay.
Can we talk engineering?
So the property is 300 6th Avenue, Asbury Park, block 3606, lot 5, R2 zone. Property has a lot width of 35 feet along 6th Avenue, 100 foot in depth, which gives you the 3,500 square foot total lot size. We're proposing a 3-story, 30-foot high house. The proposed lot coverage is 2,068, which is a 5909 lot coverage, which is under the 65%. So we're all talking about intensifying the lot and all these things, but we are compliant with the lot coverage. So we're not really maxing out the potential of the property, and with these reductions with the deck in the rear and some reductions elsewhere, we're actually going to be well under the 65% lot coverage. So we're not really pushing the lot at the seams. Most of my work I've done is in Princeton Township, New Jersey, and these types of lots are what we're typically, I go in front of the boards with. They are narrow, they are tight, they're all planning board submissions, and we go through the motions to figure out what is the best for this property. And I don't feel that we are maxing out the potential of this property. I mean, the building coverage is currently at 42%. We're going to knock that down to maybe 38%, and I think that's getting close to what it is. And I think it's decks, and I think it's going to be, we always look about intensifying the property. I don't see that, a 30% is your building coverage, and you're only going to be around 38%. That's not a major intensifying, as we say, we put 10 pounds of dirt in a 5-pound bag. I just don't see it, and I also see with the architecture, it is just gleaming. It's a beautiful product that's the architect put together, but I'm a professional engineer. So I went through the review memorandums of Clark, Caton, and Hinson. I went through the memorandums of the township engineer, and I just wanted to go over, there was one issue with parking.
And we're not going to submit any new plans because I think some of them changed, but let's talk about the number of, before I forget, just with the chairman had a question about the curb cut. It's a one car curb cut, correct?
That is correct. It's one car curb cut. Per the plans, it's a 15-foot wide curb cut. It's within the parking.
15? I thought it was 10.
It's 10 foot at the neck.
Okay.
It's 15 at the mouth.
Okay.
We can make it whatever you want. I prefer 15, but you're not going to gain a half parking spot.
And what are we using? What are we using
plan,
for pavers?
We'll probably do what the township normally does is a concrete up to your right of way, and then from the right of way we'll go with pavers.
Concrete.
Concrete, asphalt. We could go pavers, but most townships usually like to have the concrete to the right of way.
Right.
That's your responsibility.
Oh, you're talking about the skirt.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
The apron.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Yeah.
Onto the right of way. That's our property.
Right.
We'll put the pavers, and we're probably going to go with the porous.
Pervious pavers.
Porous pavers.
Porous.
Right. Because
Okay.
we have, which I just the township engineer memo. He's got stormwater management. So
Exactly, and that's our next question to you, Mr. Schmidt.
Yeah, so the way we've done this is it's twofold. Your permeability here is a lot better than permeability in Princeton, but we're going to probably put your sand, your gravel underneath the pavers. The pavers will drain, and it really works very well. I've been doing this since 2002. This type of handling stormwater management, and then on the westerly side of the property, which is opposite Webb. We have a strip of land there, which we might have to do with like a little rain garden, which is a 6-inch to 8-inch indentation. Where the water goes in there and seeps into the rain garden and it cleanses it. All right, you have dirty water and clean water. You have roof water, which is clean. You got the pavement, driveway water, which is dirty. So you're going to treat that water in accordance with exactly how he specified. I'm very familiar with those regs. And then we'll probably have the emergency system tie into the stormwater system. So what you do is if it all functions the way it's supposed to, you have little runoff to that inlet. But if things go astray, that's your emergency outlet. So
I understand.
that's how we come up with the design as far as stormwater management. That all has to be, it's an involved and it's site specific. It's not something that you have a boilerplate report. You know, I'm going to have to get the permeability.
I've been doing this long enough, so yes, I agree.
So you got to get the permeability, you got to get the site and get the exact impervious surface coverage because it costs my client money to do it once, and then you keep on changing it. You have the model, but you still have to re-put the numbers.
Well, I'm sure you'll be working with Jason in regards to the.
Well, all the stuff where I work in goes to the DEP. So if it's Jason or if it's the Canal Commission who I deal with. I mean, I'm dealing with the DEP all the time. So.
And Mr. Chairman, as if we were fortunate to get approval as a condition, we would certainly have the stormwater management details reviewed and approved by the board engineer.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
And I think, Dave, we were talking about, so with the actual, if you could tell the board the number of parking spaces and the location. And I think, Mr. Chairman, we sort of, in reviewing the review memorandum, we realized that some of the spaces didn't necessarily meet RSI.
Right, the RSI is 9 by 18. We had a little bit smaller than that. Now we're having the deck being removed, so now we have the additional space to get the 2 extra feet and 3 extra feet. So we're going to have 2 spots. The courtyard in the rear of the property, or the back paver area, is where the parking is. You're gonna have one pull in, and then you're gonna have one next to it. Is it ideal? Is the other car gonna be able to pull out? The answer is no. What you're gonna have to do is back the car out, and then let that person get a K-turn and come out, and then come back in. It's no different than having a townhouse with a car in the garage and a car behind. The car in the garage wants to get out, he has to move the car out, he moves, and then vice versa. But there are 2 spaces legitimately dedicated.
And you're only eliminating 1 space on Webb, is that correct?
1 space on Webb. We did put we don't want to show the exhibit, but we did put the spacings that we have, and it doesn't smack right in the middle, but it's a little bit offset, but it's within 1 spot, so 1 spot will be removed.
And the 2 parking spaces that we're proposing as modified will both comply with RSIS standards?
9 by 18.
Okay. And in terms of, I know that there was a question regarding, do you have any information regarding sewers?
Well, sewers is storm and Saturday. I'm assuming that during a tidal wave, that the sewer might back up, and that's nothing that I can do about that. What we're supposed to do is design and reduce the stormwater runoff for the 2-year 50%. The 10-year by 75 and the 100 by, that's all we're,
okay.
I can't fix your sewer system. If it's backing up to a tidal event, we're actually reducing the amount of flow that we're going to the storm sewer system, but we're not increasing it.
And I cut you off, I think I interfered with your flow. Did you have anything else to add?
I think with all that was discussed with the architect and the planner of the bulk of this application.
And is it safe to say that you can comply with the technical comments that are in Jason's review memorandum and Don's review memorandum?
I have done them in previous jobs at this size, and obviously if I can't, you have to come back, but we will make it work. And
thank you.
It has to be in accordance with both the lessons and the planning for professionals.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
No further questions for the witness at this time, sir.
Mr. Schmidt, are you able to, or if not, Mr. Kennedy, I'm just curious, there is an existing curb cut on 6th Avenue in front of this property. Is that I assume is being used by the neighbors?
And I think Mike has information on that.
That's not your property. The curb cut's not your property. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the survey, and it's a little hard to determine.
If you go into, when I did the investigation, I noticed that the adjacent property, which is lot 4, I lost it.
Is there still going to be a curb cut
I
and
believe the
enough
curb
par-
cut's there, and he parks his car along the common property line.
Is there still going to be enough room for the neighbor to use that as a driveway?
It appears to be wide enough between the property line and his house.
They were still 6 feet off.
Where's the property line here? Isn't this, am I not looking at the right things? On the survey, it looks like the property line is right in the middle of that dirt driveway? Yeah.
Per the survey?
Yes.
I don't see it on my plans.
Yeah, no, there's a property survey by Mike Lynch.
Oh.
Get that for you, I have it.
Mr. Schmidt, while Kevin's looking, where did you get your information for your plans then? If not using that survey?
No, we did use the survey. I don't have that driveway reproduced on this,
Oh, okay.
so, you know, I mean, this is an old.
So you did rely on the Lynch survey?
We did rely on the survey, and we did supplemental survey information.
Okay. Can you say that? Well, we have some information on that, Mr. Chairman?
From Mr. Dunn?
From Mr. Dunn. Do you want me to bring him in now or get it later?
Well, since the question's been asked, we might as well ask Mr. Dunn.
Because I asked that same question when the survey came out. Would you mind if I borrow that? I asked that same question because it showed that on the plans, and the reason he marked that on there is because when the land was vacant, they were parking on the property, so it's worn out there. But
They
it's
meaning
not
who?
The neighbors.
Parking
So it's
on
not-
your property.
Right, it's not technically a driveway, it's dirt because it was being parked on.
But is that your property or not your
Yeah,
property?
no, it is. Where that dirt is my property.
But is there or is there not a curb cut, an apron that leads to that dirt?
That is their property, that is their driveway. They have a curb cut and a driveway, and it was kind of double wide because it was a vacant lot. So he hadn't marked that on my survey. I asked him that, and he just said, well, it's because there's dirt there. But there is a driveway that's next door. That's where the curb cut is. That curb cut's not on our property. The actual property line ends, there's a cut on the sidewalk that starts their driveway, their apron or whatever you call it. That's where my property line is. There's permanent markers in there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
You're welcome.
No further questions for the witness at this time, sir.
Any further questions for Mr. Schmidt from the board?
One question, so will your driveway butt into his driveway?
No.
No, our driveway's on Webb Street to the south.
See
where their driveway is
here? Okay,
This is what I'm talking about. This is for the neighbor.
That's the neighbors, and yours is on the other side.
I was just asking about this curb cut.
Okay, so we're good.
Anyone else from the board?
So what I see on that, if I could throw my spin on it, it looks like the curb cut is not on the applicant's property extended to the street, but the driveway curves in a little bit, and a portion of the driveway is. So
yes,
it looks like that. The use of
Extending
that
onto
driveway
the
there-
applicant's property? A portion of the driveway?
Yeah, it's shown on the survey. I don't know if you guys have that.
Yeah, we do.
You can see the driveway, it straddles the line. It's mostly on the neighbor's property, but there's a portion on the applicant's property. So unless there's an agreement to continue that driveway goes away. Unless they can,
And if you look at the aerial and the street view, I mean, it's just dirt access, it's just worn.
yeah.
It's not
But
like
there is
it's-
an apron there, so.
There's an apron.
Yeah.
But, you know, how you travel across the grass affects how wide a footprint you make. So they may be using more land than is theirs in order to park cars on the side of the house lined up with that. Because if you look, again, at street view, they're kind of going outside the curb cut in order to get around the house. They're making that curve. So they may still have access from that curb cut, but they're gonna have to have a very narrow path to avoid trespassing on the 306.
It's 9 feet wide.
I'm sorry?
It's 9 feet wide from the house face to the property line.
Yeah,
That was gonna be
so
my
that's-
next
So
question.
they will have. the
They're
curb
using
cut will
more
be
than
there.
9 feet now.
It'll be tight. I mean, you can have an 8.
9 is our minimum, correct?
We have no minimum for single-family houses.
No, they changed that.
Right.
Whose
Yeah.
house?
I'm sorry, what did you say, Donna?
There's no minimum for a single
Lot
family.
4 to lot 5.
I'm sorry. Say it again.
I have it per scale that the existing dwelling is 9 feet from our property line, common property line from lot 4.
Is there going to be a fence surrounding the
Fence.
property as well? So the fence will be on the property line,
It'll
correct?
be on the property line.
So it's probably going to eliminate that
They will have-
driveway to some degree.
They will
It'll
have-
eliminate the overusage of the driveway. It won't be able to double park, but it'll be subject to a 9-foot wide.
And the height of that is going to be 4 feet?
No, 6 foot along the side property line.
6 foot. So the fence will kind of determine what that
Will deter
driveway.
him from going onto our property,
Uh-huh.
and it's 9 feet wide, which is okay except for me with a pickup truck. But you can still make it work. I mean, your parking stalls are 9 by 18. It's doable. So he'll still have access to park his cars along that common property line.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right.
I'm satisfied, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Anybody else on the board for Mr. Schmidt? Board professionals, any further questions for Mr. Schmidt?
I have one question, just for clarification. So what was your proposed driveway in the plans that you submitted? The paver area?
The paver area, as I had submitted, was 15 by 17 overall. That was the usable space. I mean, the pavers kind of skirt out here and there with the shed, but it was 15 by 17.
Okay, and you're now gonna make
18 by 18.
18 by 18?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna need the calculations to make sure that we have the right calculations as far as the impervious coverage, because
Well,
that's.
it's gonna get less because we're taking out the deck.
We will do that.
No, I understand, I understand overall it's gonna be less, but it's not gonna be less 105 square feet, because you're now adding.
Right. I
Well,
calculated
the
it.
building coverage is reducing, the impervious coverage will increase.
Correct, well, it still is gonna be
Well,
reduced,
yeah.
it's not gonna be reduced 105 square feet.
That's correct.
So we need to just make sure we have the right calculations as far as if there is an approval, we need to identify the actual proper
Okay.
percentage.
That could be a conditional.
So the greater concern is how do you get to the 18 feet? When you only had 17 feet before? Are we removing the generator or the shed or?
You need to go 1 foot or 1 foot toward the deck, so we gain it the one way.
Yeah, I
That's
got that.
an easy one.
That one's the easy one. I didn't need your help with that, thank you. I know I'm not an engineer.
Just keeping it clear. But we will have to probably move the shed back, and that'll be, the way I had it shown, it would be 3 feet from the property line.
Well, it needs to be 5 feet from the side property line.
Right,
And you're
so
only at 5
so
feet,
the shed
so-
might have to go.
So the shed might have to go. What about the generator?
I think we're okay with the generator.
Okay.
But the shed, I came out when I sketched, it was 3 feet, and I told him.
Will the generator go on top of the shed?
No.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Schmidt? All right, I'll open it up to the public. Please come to the mic if you have questions for Mr. Schmidt, just based on his testimony regarding parking and stormwater management and impervious coverage.
Gloria Peretti, 305 6th Avenue. There is a sewer hole in the center of 6th Avenue, which is almost in front of the gentleman's, the yellow house. And it's constantly backing up. Will the addition of a new building add to this problem?
No, we are. What's that?
I'm sorry, what is it? A sewer?
Yeah, there's a hole in the ground where, I guess where the sewer.
In the road?
In the road on 6th Avenue.
Okay.
So there's
You're talking
constantly
about
trucks.
a curb inlet?
No, it's not a manhole, it's a round little hole that's in the middle of the street.
In the middle of the street.
In the middle of the street. So every once in a while, more frequently than not.
That's not for stormwater management, in the middle of the street.
Oh.
Is it that water box?
That's the only one I see. It looks like a valve for the water main.
That's a different situation, ma'am.
Oh,
That's
water
not,
comes
that's
out of
not for
there when it
stormwater.
rains? Is that what you're saying? They're always pumping stuff out of there. I don't know what they're doing.
They're talking about the little circle patch that's on the grass next to where the driveway entrance.
Yeah.
The stormwater drains are part of the curb cuts, are actually.
Okay.
They're all on the curbs.
Okay.
That what's in the middle of the street has nothing to do with stormwater management.
Jason, you have any?
I'm driving up and down the street here. I don't see anything.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
All I see is that one damaged water box.
The water valve, yep.
Okay.
Jean Bouville again. I have a question. How can he build a house, no driveway? He has to use my driveway to go to his.
No, he's creating a new curb cut, a new driveway.
How?
He's not going to use, he's creating it on Webb. That's a brand new curb cut on Webb.
Where is the parking will be? If there's create a new driveway.
He's creating a brand new driveway, yes.
Where will be the parking? Where will be the backyard?
Okay, so.
You can come to the plan if you want to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to build a basement? No basement.
No, it's just gonna be on the slab.
Okay.
Anyone else from the pop-up?
Okay.
Just so we're clear, which house do you live in?
3026 Avenue.
Is that 2 down?
No, it's right
Yeah,
next door.
Or the one right next door?
Let me show you.
The yellow one?
Yes, the yellow.
Okay, just so we know which house it is. Okay, thank you.
And do you know in his property where's the fence? I have 5 or 10 feet from my house to his limit on his house.
I think the testimony was that it was just, it's 9
about
feet.
9 feet.
9 feet.
I have more than that. Yes.
Happy to bring your survey.
Next time I do my survey, I don't have time to do it myself.
Hi, Tamara Bouleville, 3026 Avenue. Again, with the issue with the parking, sorry, I'm not familiar with all this architect stuff. So just based upon the description that was in his testimony, so you're saying the parking is going to be on Webb Street, which oversees where the backyard is at for our current property. Is that correct?
That's not really on the record, is it, Mr. Beekman?
I'm sorry, I'm just outlining.
I know, but do you understand what I mean, Donna?
So she can see the
You-
layout.
yeah.
So
So, Mr. Schmidt, if I could translate for the record what I think I heard. Where's the parking located on the property?
If you want, I can describe what I just said.
That would be great.
So I just pointed out on the plot grading plan, the location of the proposed parking area and driveway in relation to the property line and the adjoining house at 3026. And describe the size of the area, that there would be a fence 6 foot high along the property line that would obscure headlights from their backyard, and that it would be cars would be parked side by side coming in off Webb. That's basically what I said.
So cars will not be coming in for this house off of 6th Avenue?
Correct.
Ms. Bovell, do you have any other questions?
Yes, on the 302 6th Avenue side, my question is, how would that be? Because we have to figure out, I'm not sure, so again, where the line is between our property and their property, because as you know, we have that little slither, which is like a parking spot for us there, so I'm just a little curious to see how we're gonna come to terms with that.
Well, let me explain. So that is gonna be a legal question that you're gonna have to deal with your attorney. You're gonna have to review the survey for 302 6th Avenue. You'll have to review the survey that's actually part of this record that was submitted by Michael Lynch, I believe, for 300 6th Avenue. And you'll have to compare whether the surveys agree with each other where that common boundary line is. And if that common boundary line is the same on both surveys, what appears is happening is that your property or your parents' property or whoever owns it has a curb cut from the street to their property, which if you extended that common line from where it actually, so your common line doesn't go to the curb. Your common line is set back from the curb. The sidewalk's actually part of the public right-of-way, all right? If you extended that line directly to the curb, that common line, it appears that your curb cut would be in front of your property. But what's happening is the driveway comes in and it turns. And it appears, according to the survey from Mr. Lynch, that that driveway actually goes into your neighbor's property, which means you're encroaching onto their property. But you also have 9 feet from your property line to the house approximately. So you do have enough room to park a car on your property line. But it's going to be a matter of surveys, and this board has no jurisdiction over that because that's a private matter.
Okay, gotcha. My other question will be, where can I get a copy of tonight's survey?
From the zoning office.
From the zoning office? Okay, thank you.
It's also online.
It is, right?
It is.
Is it?
It's all
Okay,
online.
online, yeah.
It's all
online,
City of
okay.
Asbury Park website. Everything that was in the documents for us is all online,
Okay.
including the survey.
All right, thank you for your information and your time.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question?
Please.
Okay, I would like to know about, and I might be out of order, about the lighting in your driveway, what type of lighting, and to make sure that that lighting will not encroach upon the people at 302.
Sure. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, correct, or web.
Well, it's more of an architectural feature, but we normally would like to keep the dark skies as well, so you have the lights pointing downward, so what you can do as a resolution, if this does get approved, that you direct the lighting downwards so that you do not spill lighting off the property. That's something that the architect can incorporate. I'm assuming he's doing all LED lighting, but you can direct it downwards, and that could be a condition of the
And the wattage? Mr. DeVries?
I testified, you all down,
Mike, can you just come up so the mic picks you up?
I testified, all lighting will be downlighting and soffits down to the street, not out, but all it's purposely down, don't let.
I think Mr. Harris is worried about how much spillage there would be onto other people's properties.
There should be none.
So there's no exterior lighting on the site? It's only building mounted lighting at the doors?
Yep.
And it's downlighting?
And will it be central lighting or 24-hour lights?
There might be some sensor, but I don't think it'll be 24 hours.
No, all the lighting will be dawn to dusk type timers. Some will be on motion sensor. We don't use those spotlights anymore that you see on a lot of people's houses when you pull into a driveway and the spotlight illuminates. They now make them where they're only point down. And I'm, like I said, being in the lighting business, I'm very conscious of dark sky lighting. I don't want, first of all, it's glare in a driver's eye as you're pulling into a driveway and then light shine in your eyes. So they now make them, and it's really the only ones we sell. They only point down, and There's no spill left, right, up, down, it just goes straight down and it illuminates your path into the driveway. That would be on a motion sensor.
Okay, and the same thing going towards Webb as well as towards the neighbor's house?
Correct. Everything, just, there's really, the reason I kind of need the shed is because that's where I was actually gonna put the lighting for the driveway mounted on the shed pointing down to illuminate the ground, because I don't have any exterior lighting on the house pointing out. The only lighting on the exterior of the house are 2-inch recess that point straight down. And now that that rear deck is removed, there won't be lighting there. So the only lighting I'll have is if I'm permitted to put a shed there, it will be pointed down to the ground so I can pull into the driveway.
And if we're fortunate to get approval, as indicated, we would certainly agree to a condition that there is no adverse light spillover onto the adjacent neighbors.
Yeah, but I mean, we do want you to be safe too going into
Sure.
your house. Okay, and we couldn't work on the size of the shed, that wouldn't help at all.
Yeah, either way, yeah, side of the shed, front of the shed, either way.
Well, I said the size of the shed also.
Throw it down on the ground.
Size.
Oh, size.
A smaller shed.
Oh, size of the shed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's only 6 by 8.
I need some, I would like some storage, outdoor storage.
Understood.
And, so yeah, I'm not stuck on that size of the shed. So if it had to be shrunk to comply, I'd be fine with that as well.
And then you would still have your lighting
Sure, because I can mount that.
coming down. Okay, thank you, sir.
Any further questions from the public for Mr. Schmidt? Thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you.
Last witness, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Okay, we're getting tired, Mr. Kennedy.
I hear you. I have a quick witness, Andrew Janu. He's our professional planner.
Our planners are quick.
Can be.
Now you have to accept the challenge.
Thank you, Dave.
Good evening. Swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. And if you could state your name for the record as well as spell your last name, please. Andrew Janiw, Janiw. And are there any additional exhibits that have not been submitted?
I have two. I have an aerial photograph delineating the property, and then a photo board of the neighborhood.
Could you also give us the benefit of your credentials, Mr. Janiw?
Certainly. I'm a principal in the firm of Beacon Planning and Consulting Services, founding that firm in 1998. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology. Currently serving as the planner for the Borough of Carteret, Township of Livingston.
Sounds terrific, thank you.
And you have appeared before this board, haven't you?
I've appeared before this. Actually, years ago, one of my first assignments at Beacon Planning was the first iteration of the Cookman Avenue redevelopment plan. That's just a one-sided aerial, and I have a two-sided photo board.
So Jeff, the aerial photograph is?
Is going to be A2 and A3 is going to be the photo board.
Thank you.
Two-sided. I'll refer to these through the testimony.
And Andrew, just for the record, you're familiar with the application and the plans, correct?
I am.
And you're familiar with the testimony that was presented tonight?
Heard all the testimony, reviewed all the review letters in preparation for this evening, as well as the plans that have been prepared.
And what's your analysis from a planning perspective?
So we've modified the bulk variances that are required. The variances that are required all qualify under the bulk C1 or C2 standards. What we're seeking tonight is a variance for a minimum lot width. Your zone requires 50 feet, 35 feet is existing and is a dimensional issue that cannot be reconciled. We're also seeking a front yard setback from Webb, where 20 feet is required. We are providing 8 feet to the home and 3 feet to the first floor porch. We've eliminated the rear yard setback. We are seeking a building coverage variance. 30% is permitted. I believe we're about 38%, but that'll be verified as part of the condition. And then we are seeking a building height variance for the number of stories. We're compliant in terms of feet for height, but the interpretation of the top level is a full story. So we are seeking for a third story with respect to that. So in reconciliation of the variances tonight, we look at your master plan, your ordinances. Your master plan speaks with respect to protecting and enhancing the quality and enjoyment of the city's residential neighborhoods through policy regulation. This is in the R2 district, which permits single-family and two-family homes. We're consistent with that. Your master plan also seeks to provide for a variety of housing types for all income levels throughout the city. This neighborhood, will probably a good time to work through the board. The property here is outlined in yellow. If you will, I'm going to drop this so we can kind of correlate the aerial to the photographs. This will be the first side of the photo board. The subject property is on the top left and the top right photo. This is now the view from 6th. There's a fence around the property today. These photographs were taken yesterday morning. This is the side view looking towards the two properties along 6th. These are the view looking down 6th. These two homes are multifamilies. They've been converted according to your tax records. They're both 3-family homes. This is on a 40 by 100 lot, and this home is on a 25 by 100 lot. Each contain 8 bedrooms and have basements. So in terms of, these were both built in the 1920s, so that's establishing the character of the neighborhood in terms of what's historically there. When we turn over, oh, one other thing I wanted to point out here, the distance between lots 3 and 4. So we are providing a 6-foot side yard setback that is compliant with respect to our neighbor. You can see how tight these existing homes are. There's a bay window that encroaches right into that space. So the setback that we have with respect to light area and open space to the neighbor respects the ordinance requirement of 6 feet. So we are providing that. That's the expectation within the zone for the neighbor. Other board. Now these are the web condominiums that are directly to our south. These are the homes that were discussed before in terms of we are approximating the setback to these homes with our side porch. This property is this multifamily project directly across the street from us. Then we have this lovely blue Victorian home that's diagonally across from us, very well maintained, undergoing constant maintenance from what I've seen the few times I've been out there, but very well maintained. And then finally, directly across from us, what we're really looking at is a garden apartment with a parking lot. So this is a transitional area. I think what we're providing here is a single-family home in an area that's a variety of single-family homes, multi-family homes, converted single-family homes into multi-family homes. But I think we are consistent with what your plan seeks to protect in terms of the character of the neighborhood. And certainly you can see the porches throughout, both behind, across the street, and directly adjacent to us, we do have consistent porches. So that's the character of the neighborhood that we're dealing with. And that's the immediate vicinity of the neighborhood. So we also have to turn to the purposes of the municipal land use law, because as the board knows, variances aren't just for the benefit of the property owner. The municipal land use law gives us reasons that are public reasons. We have to meet at least one of those in order to advance a variance. I believe in this case, we advance at least 3 of those purposes. The first is to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, and regions, and the preservation of the environment. So in this case, the minimum lot area for a single-family home is 2,500 square feet. We are at 3,500 square feet. We are at the proper density, and we do foster that purpose of the zone. G, under the MLUL, is to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of agricultural, residential, recreational, commercial, and industrial uses in open space, both public and private, according to their respective environmental requirements in order to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. So we have a vacant lot here. I believe we're probably developing it at the lowest potential intensity that we could. It's a single-family home. This isn't an area that would permit 2-family homes. This board heard a 2-family home application before it denied it and had expressed interest in what would it look like with a single-family home. I believe that's appropriate given the constraints that this lot has. It's burdened not only with an undersized width, but also with 2 lot frontages, which further complicate the application. But I think what we've created here is a modest-sized house that's consistent with the character of the neighborhood and meets the needs of the applicant as well as the neighborhood. And then finally, to promote a desirable visual environment through the creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. I believe we've met the aesthetics. We've heard your concerns about the number of decks. We've responded to that. We've eliminated the back decks. yet we still provide a livable space for the applicant. So I think in terms of reconciling this with the municipal land use law, we do. So that brings us to the relief under the C criteria. It's the C1 and the C2 criteria. Excuse me. I'm going to try to slow down because I'm trying to rush through.
No, it's fine, Mr. Genu. We're keeping up. We're keeping up.
I'm just happy to not a court reporter because she
Keep
be
going.
throwing.
Keep going.
Doing good, doing good. Keep it up.
I always feel like we're galloping through testimony.
So the C1 is the hardship criteria. And that's the proper criteria by which to measure the width here. We can't do anything about this. We have 35 feet. There's no other property to acquire here. We can't reconcile that. We also have to deal with the setback along Webb. That's promulgated, quite frankly, by the fact that we have 2 front yards and we have 2 front yard setbacks. With a narrow lot to begin with, and then
I've always heard that a corner lot was the most premier lot to have. You make it sound like it isn't.
It is if it's oversized. I mean, quite frankly, in a lot of communities, and certainly the older communities that I've worked with, there are requirements for oversized corner lots because of the want to have those setbacks. But in this case, we are burdened with that. We have a piece of land that we need to do something with. And I think we've addressed that properly. The house will be oriented towards 6th. It will be set back properly along 6th Avenue. It will be consistent with what's the expectation along 6th. And we have functionally a side yard along 6th Avenue that will line up with the homes behind it. So we're not creating anything that's out of character, that's not consistent. So in terms of, it's driven by a hardship, but I think we've addressed those hardships very well. With respect to the lot coverage and to the height, we are constrained in terms of our building envelope. So we were stressed, if you will, to create livable space and to create a livable home. The way we did that is by working with the footprint, creating some porches, some decks that all contribute to the building envelope that creates the building variance. We reduced that by eliminating the porches to the back of the property, but we're still slightly over. In terms of the height, Mr. Savarese testified that under the building code, that would be considered a half-story because of the area but your definition also deals with wall height, and we don't meet that definition. So technically, we're a full story, even though it's only about 50% of the footprint of the building. What that does, though, is creates space for interior. It's the family rooms, if you will, because we have living area, bedroom on the first floor, bedrooms on the second floor, and then we have the family room space on the top floor. That opens out into what functionally is the outdoor space, because what otherwise would be the yard is going to be consumed by parking. If we need to provide off-street parking, that's a good thing in Asbury Park. I mean, going back even to the 90s, parking was an issue.
Undeniable.
So we are meeting our parking requirement pursuant to yours, but it consumes the outdoor space. We're creating some rooftop space, if you will. And it's not different than some of the townhouses that are being created here, where you have livable space up on the roof decks. If you look at the Vive or any of the new townhouses that are being created, they're creating rooftop space just to have not only views, and let's face it, we're a beach town. We want to see the ocean. We want to look down the views in the streets. But it creates some outdoor space that's livable, that's functional. And it'll be screened properly. And you can see from the back of those homes do have, well, immediate next to us, we have fire escapes that go up to the 3rd level, and beyond that, what's a functional fire escape, but also a deck along the back. I'll point out to here. And then the 25-foot lot actually has enclosed porches along the back for some outdoor recreation space. That's a restricted lot as well. That's the way people have dealt with that. So I think when we look at reconciling all the variances, we're certainly not creating anything that's a significant nuisance in terms of any intrusion, light, air, and open space. We're honoring that to the immediate neighbors. We're providing the appropriate rear yard setback. We're providing the appropriate side yard setback to our neighbors. The only deviation that we're seeking is along Webb, and we're consistent with the neighbor there. So when we look at your zone plan, when we look at your master plan, and we look at the neighbors, I don't think we're creating anything that's a substantial detriment, which is the criteria by which you would deny a variance. What we're doing, I think there's some challenges to the lot. We've addressed those challenges. We've addressed them, I believe, to the point where we're non-intrusive, and yet we create a very livable home. So on balance, I think we do meet the tests for bulk variance relief for the 4 variances that we're seeking. And I would ask this board to consider this favorably.
Thank you.
Done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was very succinct and quick.
20 minutes.
I have 14 pages.
I have no questions. Does anybody on the board have any questions for Mr. Genevieve?
Nope.
Any questions from the board professionals, including Mr. Beekman?
I do not have any.
All right, so I'll open it up to the public. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Janu's testimony? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further witnesses, and as a gift to the board, I have no closing summation.
That only works in your favor, Mr. Kennedy. All right, so we're at the point of public comment. I will make a motion to open it up to public comment. You have, who's going to do this? We have
it?
4 minutes, that's it.
Well, I'll do it. So I know where.
We should all take turns
There
playing
we go.
secretary.
Minutes. There's gotta be.
They just like to see it. Now, when we can do it this way, it's helpful to be able to see it and see it on the camera as well.
We don't know how to turn it on either.
Here, oh, there we go. We do, we do.
Okay, so now we need to
3 minutes.
4 minutes. They get 4 minutes.
Let's go 20.
While they're trying to figure this out, let me just explain how this works as far as the public.
Please.
Set time.
So you have an opportunity to make any comments you want. This is not a question portion anymore. You have the right to make comments regarding the application. You're going to be sworn in. Each person that comes up to the mic, you'll be sworn in first, and you can make your comment. You're going to be limited to
4 minutes.
4 minutes, and if the timer goes off, you'll have to stop your comments then. Okay? But the most important thing is you will be sworn in if you come up to the mic.
Are we there?
Nope.
Doesn't want to.
Can we-
Display.
This isn't really changing either.
No, that's what it should. This should show on top.
No?
This board.
I guess we'll have to use a phone.
That always works.
I have a timer on my watch. Want me to use it? If you trust me?
I have a timer.
Okay.
It's up to Mr. Beekman. He's our attorney, so.
I was going to try to figure out how I can make it bigger so you can see it, but I'll do my best. And you know what? I'll just go like this when there's a minute left. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
And we'll figure out the timer another time. So if anyone would like to, in the public, first I'll make a motion to open it up to public comment.
I'll second.
If anyone would like to make a comment regarding this application, either for or against, please come to the mic. Mr. Beekman will swear you in, and then we will move on to the 4-minute time frame.
Nobody?
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 Come on, y'all, say something. Once we done, we done.
So, you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
And for the record, if you can state your name and also spell your last name, please.
sure. It's Tamara Beauville, Beauvil.
And where do you live, Ms. Boville?
3026 Sixth Avenue.
Okay. Timer is starting now.
Hold on.
I think Wendy got it.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, I have it on, but. Four. Oh, sorry. Shoot.
Just make sure you do 4 minutes, not 4 hours.
I miss Irina.
All right, you know what, at the moment, you're gonna get 4 extra seconds.
Don't worry, I was gonna keep it short.
I hope it's not hours, we'll see. Should be minutes.
Oh, that's the time.
Start.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, come on.
You just use it.
Okay.
Oh.
It says,
I was gonna keep it short.
Now, how do we do it?
I have to say, a lot of times most comments don't go the full 4 minutes, but you have it. I have it, yeah.
All right, let's just use the phone. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy.
Okay. Are you prepared?
I am.
Go ahead.
Okay, in this plan that I heard tonight, I'm against it due to the fact that I feel like the applicant needs to go back to the board again with the new modifications that were proposed, because everything was just a little confusing with their initially trying to build on this very small lot, looking at it from the next door's perspective. The plan itself, the design for the house is very lovely. I'm not going to discredit the work that was put into it. However, just looking at what they were trying to do in this neighborhood, it doesn't really fit what the Asbury Park mold is. Personally, just look at it from my perspective from next door. I think on that personal lot, if you were to build a home, it would be something that's very modest, such as like a tiny, one of those mobile homes, like one of those small little tiny homes. But what they're building, it just seems like it's very large and it's gonna like kind of take away from the beauty of the neighborhood. With this plot of land, it's been vacant for over 30 something years, and they're not the first owners to have this lot. There's probably been a reason why in the past no one ever built on this lot. Just overall, I just feel like we're a little against this plan because I feel like they need to come back and redo the modifications, what's allowed. I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Anybody else in the public who would like to make a comment regarding either for or against this application?
And Mr. Belleville, you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And for the record, again, if you could just say your name and spell your last name as well.
M. Beauville, Beauville.
You know, Mr. Belleville, how do you spell your first name?
Jean. John.
Jean,
Jean,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you. And you're also at 302 6th Avenue?
Yeah, I'm the owner, yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Time start.
Okay. I own my house for the last almost 28 years. This little is always vacant, and there is nothing. Every people try to build a house on it. For one reason or another, they both refuse. And I see this, I respect the hard work, the architect, the engineer, everybody do on this plan, but for a little piece of property like that, they can build a house like that on this plan. This property is too small, there is no parking, there is no driveway, there is no sidewalk. I can understand. And first floor, third floor, second floor, 2 laundry rooms, 4 bedrooms. That I think it's too many things on the little piece of property. And over there in 6th Avenue, parking is a headache. Even for me, I don't have to park to go inside my property. I have to park sometimes 10 feet, 20 feet to use my feet to walk to go to my property. I don't know how come you bring another headache again to the neighborhood. That's it.
Are you done, Mr. Boville? Okay. And anybody else in the public who would like to make a comment regarding this application, either for or against? All right, I'll make a motion to close public comment.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Mr. Kennedy, do you have any closing remarks?
I do not. I thank the board for the time. I think the concessions we made hopefully addressed you. I think it's a strong application. I think the concessions that we've made and modifications have made it an even stronger application, and I respectfully request approval.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. All right. So we're at the deliberation of the board. Does anybody want to open it up?
Yeah, sure. When I first looked at these plans, I was skeptical, but after your presentation and your explanation, I'm satisfied with what you've showed us, Mr. Severese. You've done a masterful job of getting as much as you possibly could out of what is there. To the family at 302, we have heard your concerns. To the young lady, I'm very proud of you to speak up because we need more young people like you to speak up on behalf of your community. You know, so I applaud you for doing that. Okay, and Pop, you did a good job. Okay, but how long can we let a vacant lot set fallow in this city? And I think that a vacant lot is more of an eyesore than what I see in the architect's plans. So because of that, I'm in favor of your application, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
You know, I gotta say, I totally agree with you, and I appreciate the way you explained yourself. I also think this is a really appropriate, well thought out plan for this very difficult lot. As you know, we've had applicants come before that just were trying to do too much, and I think you've taken the time and the effort to build something that's really appropriate. So I'm in favor of this.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anyone else would like to comment?
I echo the sentiments of my other board members. I appreciate the accommodations that you made to make this fit into the neighborhood. So I appreciate that.
I have to agree. The accommodations that were made, you heard our concerns and our issues. I'd love to see this lot developed. It's been vacant far too long, and it's going to be a beautiful project.
I agree with my other board members as well. Very well presented.
I too appreciate the efforts to hear our comments and to make the appropriate modifications to the design. I'm very happy to see a new single-family home built on this lot. And I am in favor of it as well. So, based on that, do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the application for 306th Avenue.
I would second. I know that there's a lot of modifications and a lot of changes that we need to go through. I did ask Chris if he was interested in having a plan come back before us. I don't know that that's necessary if our professionals feel like they have good notes on
all the conditions that would have to be added, Mr.
There's quite a few.
Yeah, I can read into the record a few conditions, and I obviously ask Donna and Jason to help out if there's anything I missed.
Please.
If that's okay. So what I have in my notes is that the applicant will comply with all FEMA flood and City of Asbury Park flood zone requirements. The foundation reveal before the siding finish detail will be approximately 6 inches, and it will be, the reveal will not be too much as far as the foundation goes. Lighting is going to be inward and downward. There won't be sconces. It's going to be dark sky friendly, and all lighting shall not spill over to the property lines of the neighboring properties. The applicant agreed to remove the rear first floor deck, the rear second floor deck on the south side, as well as to reduce the outdoor space on the third floor, or the roof deck rather. The Juliet balconies will be constructed on the, what side am I? What's web? The web side is, yeah. So the web side, the Juliet balconies will be installed rather than the full balcony on the second floor. Third floor privacy lattice will have green plantings on the west side of the roof deck to provide for privacy to the neighbor at 302 6th Avenue. The rear yard setback shall now comply at 25 feet.
The applicant will provide plans to show the reduced building coverage by approximately 105 square feet, as well as provide details in the plan to show the revised impervious coverage. And the impervious coverage will decrease by the 105 square feet, but increase by the revised design for the patio driveway.
Stormwater management will be
Well,
handled in conjunction.
The normal compliance of the letters of the board's professionals. And I think that's all I have.
What was the resolution on the shed?
The shed has to comply. The setback has to comply.
So he was gonna reduce the size potentially to accommodate the parking,
And the setback, correct?
but it would still conform with the setback.
Yeah.
It has to conform with the setback, and the parking area has to conform with 2 parking spaces of at least 9 by 18.
Correct.
And Mr. Chairman, just for the record, Jim, you've heard those conditions, we're all okay, correct?
Yep.
We are okay, and just for the record, we promise to comply with all the promises and commitments and representations we made tonight, because we know there were a lot of items of discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you.
So, are we all good?
So, Mr. Harris, you confirm your motion?
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Lewis, you confirm a second?
Yes. All right.
I guess I have to do a roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Potter?
Yes.
Mr. Slick?
Yes.
Ms. Glassman?
Yes.
Mr. Scully?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
And Chair Avalone?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time. And for the young woman, I actually have a copy of the survey, so I'll give that to her. And it's not the best copy, but it's a start.
Thank you, everyone. And I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Y'all better go home.